guys, it's Cheryl with Old Fashioned Southern Cooking. Today I brought y'all on because I'm going to show you a couple of marinades. Now on the other video, I'm not sure which ones I actually did, and one of them might have been the Cajun, because I use Cajun a lot, like on my chicken, and I even use it on my steak sometimes. But now my husband always likes the garlic Parmesan, or he likes the Sweet Baby Ray's. So I'm not quite sure which one I showed y'all. But anyway, today what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how to prepare them and tenderize them and get them ready for the marinades. And we'll go ahead and put the marinades together too as well. So first of all, let me show y'all what I do use, what I'm going to use today, and what kind of meat we're going to have today. So today we're having two different kinds of meat because my husband loves steak, and sometimes I just don't always want steak. I mean, he don't eat steak every day. But today he did want steak, so I said, well, I think I'll just get me a piece of chicken breast out and we'll unthaw them, and that's what we'll go with. So today, I've got me a piece of chicken breast laying here in this little bowl, and it's unthawed, and it's wrapped in just saran where I freeze it, and I put it in a bag and unthaw it in some cold water. So it is ready to go, and for the chicken, I'm going to be using some of the Smokey Mesquite this time instead of the Cajun seasoning. And we might use a little bit of the mesquite rub. I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't want to put too much mesquite on it because I'm also going to add a little bit of the liquid smoke, the mesquite liquid smoke. I'm going to put a little bit of that on my chicken as well. So I don't know that we'll need that because, like I said, I don't want it to be, you know, you can have too much seasoning. So I don't want to kill it or anything like that. And then next, my husband has a couple pieces of the top sirloin steak in this bowl. And now what he likes, like I told you, is he does like the garlic Parmesan. So we're going to go with the garlic Parmesan today. And what I'm going to do is I like to use about a quarter stick of butter. So we're just going to cut this in half. So we'll just use half and half of it. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get y'all down here a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you the beginning to the end of how I do my meats and how I get them ready to go outside on the charcoal grill. So give me just a minute. Let me bring y'all closer, and I'll be right back. Okay, y'all. So I've got you over here at my sink right now, and what I do first is I take everything out of my sink, my mat and everything I have in there, and then I get me a strainer, right? And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the steak first, okay? Because what I'm going to wind up having to do after I do his steak, I'll have to wash out my strainer, and then I'll have to do my chicken because some people do it, you know, they just put it in there anyway. I don't do that. I'm a little bit funny about cross-contamination, so I won't do it that way. But anyway, what we're going to do here is we're going to take a steak, and we're going to open it up with this saran wrap if I can find the ends. And now I know y'all, some of y'all don't like people to rinse their meat off, but I'm going to tell you, I rinse mine, and that's just me. That's just how I do it. But anyway, I'm going to try to do this without touching my handle. And I like to try to rinse off some of my little packaging pieces here, like the saran, before I put it in my trash. That way the flies don't go crazy and whatnot out there in my garbage cans. And they will if you don't kind of rinse stuff like that off. Sometimes they just love stuff like that. So I try to rinse it off the best I can. And I just try to be as safe as I can with meat, you know. You can get cross-contamination if you're not really careful with certain meats. Especially when you're working with two different kinds of meat. That's when, you know, you really do have to be careful. If it was the same kind of meat, I wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't bother me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my water on really hot water. I'm just going to rinse this out because it has steak in it anyway, right? So it's not a big deal. We're just going to rinse this out with scalding hot water. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my water on cold, okay? You do not want to rinse your meat with any kind of even warm water. You want cold water, cold as you can get. Okay. So all I do is I'm going to turn the pressure down a little bit so I don't, you know, scatter it all over the kitchen. And I'm just going to rinse this off a little bit because it had a little bit of blood on it. So I'm going to rinse it off. And then I'm just going to I'm going to let it drip a little bit. And I will transfer it over to the bowl. But anyway, this is all I do with this part. I just rinse the meat off real good, get some of that excess blood off there. And I change these after I work with meat, y'all. So just so y'all know. I do. I don't like to reuse them, even though you can sanitize them and do whatever. I like to change them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash this out. And when I get this washed out, I'll bring y'all back. And then after I get my chicken rinsed off and everything, I'll bring y'all back and we'll go ahead and get started with this. I just want to show you what I do. And basically, that's all I do with the chicken too. I just rinse it off. So give me just a minute. Let me wash this out and I'll be right back. Okay, y'all. I'm back over here at the counter, and I've got both pieces of the top sirloin laying here on my cutting board. And I'm sorry if my camera starts acting up and showing some strange colors. Sometimes it does that. I don't know why. I think it's just the surrounding light. I'm going to have to get me a ring light to try to stop that. Anyway, what I do before I get started tenderizing any meat, okay, is I take some of the Reynolds plastic wrap. We're going to open it up. We're going to get this piece out of here. And I go a little bit over. Probably than what I should. But I like to make sure that my meat is completely covered. Especially if I'm doing 2 pieces. I want to be sure. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this off. I'm going to lay this to the side because we're going to need another piece for the chicken. I don't want to use the same one, of course. Alright. We got both pieces laying there, and we got our saran wrap over top of it. The first thing I start to do is I start to beat them down with my meat tenderizer. Now, it's totally up to you which side that you want to use for this. But normally what I do is I'll start like with the small ones. Sometimes I go with the big ones, and sometimes I use the flat side. It really don't make no difference to me. I just get them tenderized, and because this is pretty good to tenderize too. But we have one more little gadget that we're going to use to tenderize them as well. But we got to do this one first, okay? So I'm going to start with the finer teeth, and we're going to start pounding these down, and I'm going to get them thinner than what they are, because they're pretty thick, and we don't like them extremely thick, so I'm going to have to pound them down until they get a little thinner. So bear with me just for a minute, guys, okay? So here we go. You don't have to beat them like you're killing them. You just need to beat them down. Just, you know, like I said, you don't have to beat them hard. Because these tenderizers, especially this, the teeth like this on it, the smaller teeth, it will go down and hit it. And, you know, any teeth on the tenderizer or any kind of meat tenderizer, it helps to push it down anyway pretty quick. So I think that's thin enough. It feels thin enough, so I think we're good with this piece. What I'm going to do is I just rinsed this bowl out and wiped it out. And I'm going to, well, let me think here. Actually, let's move this over here so we can tenderize this other one out. Get it tenderized down. And get it a little bit thinner. This one's a petite, I think. Now, that one there's a regular top sirloin. But this one was, I think, a petite. I like the petite better than I do the just regular top sirloin. Because they are smaller. So, and there's not as much there. Because a lot of times I can't eat a steak that big. So, alright, let's do this one. Now, this one is a lot thicker. So, sometimes it does require a little harder pound. Give me just a minute, y'all, to get this pounded down. So what I'm going to do is I'm done with these. So I'm going to throw this away. Let's see where this is at. We're not trying to make it chopstick. That's what I say. I don't want to continue to pound it like that. So, okay. Let's put this one over here. And like this piece of fat, now most of the time this will just pull right off. So I'm going to take that one off there because it wanted to come off anyway. So that's what I usually do is if it looks like it will come off, especially after you tenderize them, sometimes some of that fat will just pull right off, but some of it you have to cut. So let me get my hands washed in my water, my soapy water, so I can get me a knife out. Just give me just a minute, y'all. I have hand sanitizer stuff, soap in my soap dispenser over by my sink. So I can just put some of that on these for a time being. But like I said, when I'm done with all this, I will change them. So, all right, let's get the knife out of some kind. Okay, let me sharpen this, y'all. I always sharpen my knives every time I use them. I just have this little Rada knife sharpener. This thing's been a blessing. This thing will sharpen anything, any knife that you have, except the serrated knives. It won't do. But, buddy, it'll do a regular knife, and it really makes them sharp. I take it through a few times. You don't have to push hard. You just push lightly on these, and it'll do a good job. Anyway, y'all, I always wipe this up because of shavings from the knife, and you always want to rinse your knife off after you get done. Mainly on any sharpener I've ever used, I've done that because I had, when I first started using the sharpeners, I had went to cut chicken one time, and when I did, I seen that black shaving in my chicken, so I knew right then that I needed to rinse them off. Okie doke. Let's cut off just a little bit of this. We're not going to cut off a whole lot because, like I said, he likes some of the fat to be left on his. Let me wash my hands again. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this neat little gadget I got over here. That's a tenderizer as well, and this is really helpful to have one. This is a 20-prong stainless steel meat tenderizer. Let me explain something. You don't have to cover this with, you can't cover this with any kind of wrap because, of course, it's going to go down in your meat. So you can't do that. But when you do this, it doesn't fly everywhere. I mean, you don't want to get crazy with it, but I just take mine and just start going over it like this with the this little tenderizer. And I poke me several holes in this, and you wouldn't believe how tender his steaks come out and how tender my chicken comes out as well. I use this on all of our meat. Of course, you can't do it with hamburgers. You can do it with your steaks and your chicken. You can do it with the pork chops. And I've even used it on roast, believe it or not. It's a little harder on thicker meat, though, I will tell you. So, alright. So, see how thick this is? Now, see how that wants to stick in there? Sometimes, when you're using a prong, a steel 20 prong like this, you don't want to, you know, kind of gouge it all the way through. You just kind of want to go over top of the surface of it because it'll get stuck down in there. So I just kind of go with it kind of quick. That way it don't get stuck down in there, but it's still putting holes down in it. So, and you know, you don't want to do this and stop because then it's stuck again. And then what I do, and you don't have to do this, but I flip mine over like this. About stuck to my cutting board. Get that little piece turned over too. And what I'll do is I'll do it on this side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put his steaks. His is pretty good size. So what I'll have to do is I'm going to have to transfer these over into something else, y'all. And then we'll make his marinade and pour it over. But I'm going to have to get something bigger in that bowl because it's not going to work out in that bowl. So I'm just going to push that bowl up. So anyway, give me just a minute. Let me get something bigger and I'll be right back. Okay, y'all. I put his steaks in a little pie pan because they're so big after I got done beating them down and tenderizing them. So I'm going to set these to the side until we need them. All right. So I'm going to take my chicken, kind of let it drain off there, and I'm going to rinse this bowl out. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing we did with the steak. So we're going to get us a piece of saran. Let me move this bowl back. I'm going to cover this completely. I'm going to cut this off. Oops. So I've washed off all my stuff that I use for the steak, okay? I've sanitized my gloves with my hand sanitizers, the wipes. That's what I was trying to think of. And I did that well. I washed them and used a couple wipes, okay? So what I'm going to do is we're going to pound this down just like we did the steak. Nothing different, okay? So it might take me a minute, though, because this is pretty thick. So I'm going to have to pound this down. So give me just a minute, y'all. Alright, I think that'll be good enough. So we're going to take this saran off now, throw it away. I'll probably have to trim it up just a little bit from where I pounded it with that tenderizer, and that will happen. But you don't want to hit it real hard, because then you're going to have a bunch of stuff fly out all over the sides of it. Then you're just beating your chicken out is all you're doing. And we're going to trim this up just a little bit around the edges, okay? And this has been washed from when we did the steak. So see, I just do that, and I put it over into like a little Walmart bag. I freeze like my pieces of chicken that I'm going to throw away, like these little pieces from where I'm trimming. I don't put them out in my trash right now, so because of the flies, you know how they can be. So I just freeze it, and then on trash day I take it all out. So just trim that up a little bit if you want to. You don't have to. Just something I like to do. Okay. I take my knife and hold it flat and put it under my cutting board so I can get it to release a little bit. Sometimes, you know, they stick a little bit to your cutting board. Okay, y'all. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our other little tenderizer. Now, I washed this after I used it with the steak. Dry it off just a hair. And what we're going to do is we're going to poke holes in this as well. But usually on my chicken, I'll flip it over like this. I'll push some of that loose pieces in a little bit from where I used that bigger tenderizer on it. I just take a fork and do this, and it helps to push all that loose in back into your chicken. So all I do is just use this 20-prong tenderizer, and I start with the back side first. Now we'll flip it back over to the front side. Take the fork, kind of push this down, and then we'll do this on the front. Take your chicken breast and just put down in whatever you got. You know, make sure it's something big enough. And next step we're going to do is we are going to get our steak and our chicken, and we're going to go ahead and get these marinated, okay? So give me just a minute. Let me get my gloves changed and everything, and I'll be right back. Okay, y'all. We've got our steak and chicken over here, and it's ready to go. And what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to make up, I'll have to make up one of the marinades, you know, at a time. So I'm going to get a knife, and I'll change my gloves. I did. We're going to do 1/4 cup for each. So 4 tablespoons is 1/4 cup. And that is 1/2 stick of butter each. Okay. So let's, this butter's gotten room temperature pretty quick because it's salted butter, and it always does. Now, when you're using salted or unsalted butter, it's harder butter unless you let it sit out, you know, to room temperature. But what I'm going to do, I forgot. I usually cut my butter kind of into chunk-sized pieces, because it does help it melt easier in the microwave. But since this is room temperature, it's not going to take it long to melt. I'm going to take this over to the microwave, and I'm going to melt it, and then I'll be back, and then we'll put this marinade together, and I'll show you how to do the steaks, okay? So give me just a minute. Okay, y'all, we got our butter melted. Let me get me a little whisk. I need my little one. What you want to do is just whisk in the rest of it that didn't melt completely, and it'll melt. So just whisk the rest of that in, the whisk or something, fork, whatever you want to use, whatever you got. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the garlic, Weber's garlic Parmesan seasoning, and I'm going to get my measuring spoons. And what I normally put into his and into mine is 1 tablespoon of the garlic Parmesan. I measure this out right about, right at 1 tablespoon. And I pour that into my butter. We'll go back to our whisk, and we're just going to whisk all this in. You want to whisk all that seasoning in with your butter. So make sure you get that blended in good. Now, when you go to pour this over a steak, chicken, or whatever you're pouring it over, sometimes, you know, some of the seasoning tends to kind of stay behind. But don't let that bother you, because that's pretty normal, you know. Sometimes seasoning just does that. And I've noticed, with my experience, it depends on what seasoning you're using. I will tell you, Cajun will do that. But anyway, I haven't noticed this one doing it as bad. So, but you can still get it on there. I mean, it's not hurting anything. Okay, let me get the steaks over here, and we'll go ahead and pour this on here. I don't know if this will be enough or not. I'm hoping. If it ain't, I might have to make up another one. Okay, let me get me a spatula, and we're just going to go ahead and pour this onto our two top sirloin steaks. And like I said, if this ain't enough, I may have to get some more made up, but I think this will be plenty. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to rake the rest of this stuff out of here. It's always good to do that. You don't want to waste any of your ingredients. At least I don't. So that's why I'm big on getting everything out of my bowls. That's just me. Okay. Now after you get that in there, what you're going to want to do though is you're going to want to take your fork and you're going to want to lift up on the steaks and kind of run some of that the butter seasoning stuff, the marinade. You're going to want to run that underneath the steak, because if you don't, it kind of creates a little bit of an air pocket under the steak, and it won't get under there. It's hard for it to run under there anyway. So just do it to both pieces, or however many you're fixing. It doesn't matter, fixing 1, 2, however, you're going to have to do that to all of them. Because trust me, if you don't, it will not get under them. I've had that happen before. So anyway, it looks like it's all good. Now what I do sometimes, I'll take me a little basting brush and I'll go around in my the pan, and I'll just kind of brush over some of that back over the top a little bit. So there is, you get it all over them. You want all this good marinade all over your steaks, chicken, or whatever you're making with your garlic Parmesan or whatever seasoning you prefer to use. And y'all, you don't have to use these kind of seasonings. You can make this with any seasoning. I made it with a lot of different ones, and it's always just so good. You can use unsalted butter too, but keep in mind, if you use unsalted, if you let this marinate in the refrigerator for any amount of time and you go to put it on the grill, I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't heat that bowl up with that butter in it just a little bit, you will have to have something to scrape that butter out of your dish, because that butter just, it's like it hardens up real fast. So, but this butter don't do that, so the salted butter don't. Okay. Alrighty, so we've got that, but now what I will do, since it covered, it didn't cover, completely that quarter cup of butter and the seasoning, I like to just sprinkle just a little bit of the extra seasoning on top. Nothing, I don't do, anything major. I just want to make sure that it's all over it and, it's got a good flavor. Because a quarter cup ain't a whole lot. So that's all I'm going to use. I'm not going to use any more. I like to take the spatula and just kind of go around it. Okay, so his steaks are ready. And what I'll do is I'll put them in the refrigerator just for a little bit. Not very long. But the top sirloin garlic Parmesan steaks are ready to go. So I'm just going to put me a piece of foil on top of these. And I like to put them just back into the refrigerator for a little bit, because if the grill ain't quite ready yet, I don't like leaving my meat layout, y'all. That's just me. So I like to put it back in the refrigerator so it can stay, you can chill for a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do with these. Okay, y'all, let's get the chicken done so we can get it in the refrigerator too and get it marinating as well. So we got our chicken in here, and we're going to need a bowl, and I just washed all this out. What we're going to do is we're going to take our other quarter stick of butter. If I can try to unroll it here because it's getting really soft. I'm just going to stick it in there and just cut it up like I did with the other one because it is so soft. I'm going to put it on the counter or hold it because it is really, really super soft, y'all. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the microwave like I did the other, and I'm going to melt it, and I'll be right back. So, let me get my little whisk again. And whisk your butter in, whatever didn't melt. Now what we're going to add is we are going to add 1 tablespoon of the Smokey Mesquite seasoning. And it's Weber as well. I love Weber seasonings. They're my favorite. Sometimes there's some seasonings that I can't always get in Weber, and I wind up having to get like McCormick. And now I don't mind McCormick. They got some good seasons too. But for seasons for my marinades, I like Weber. It's just my favorite. Alright, there's 1 tablespoon. My camera's playing tricks on me again, isn't it, y'all? There's 1 tablespoon of the Smoky Mesquite. We're going to add that. to our butter. And I'm not going to add any rub because that's too much. Like I said, I don't want it to be an overkill. So mix in your butter and your seasoning and whisk that in good. This is one of them, like I said earlier, that when you pour it over, you'll see that some of that seasoning come out last. But that doesn't hurt a thing. Now, what we'll do, I'm going to use a little bit of this liquid smoke, but I like to put this directly onto my chicken. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring the chicken over here, okay? And I'm going to show you a little thing that I do. And you don't have to do this, but I do. I take a little knife of some kind, and what I do is I cut little slits into my chicken. When I use that liquid smoke, I like to cut little slits in it in certain places, kind of all the way down like this. And I like to open them up because it does help that to go down in the chicken pretty good, and it gives it a good smoky flavor, I think. That liquid smoke does. That's what it does, y'all. If y'all ain't never used liquid smoke, it just gives it a good smoky flavor. And Walmart had hickory and mesquite, so. Alright, so we're going to use this. Now, we're going to use a whole lot of this either. We'll shake that up good. And we'll open this up. And we're just going to drizzle like some drops over it. Just kind of concentrate where those cuts are that I made in the chicken breast. And I will kind of go over it a little bit here. And that's about all of the liquid smoke I'm going to use. I kind of take my basting brush and just kind of push it around and down in those cuts I made. It just gives it that extra smoky flavor I love. Same thing goes for this as well. That you may need to kind of lift your chicken up a little bit if you want to get a little bit of that liquid smoke under there too. Because I will tell you, liquid smoke it's not one of the real strong ones in my opinion, but that right there I think would be perfect. Alright, let's go ahead and get our seasoning with our butter, and we'll go ahead and pour this over top of it too, because both of them's mesquite anyway. Okay, let's pour this on top of our chicken breast. Again, take your fork, lift it up. Run that seasoning and butter under there because you're going to want to get that underneath that chicken. So it's ready to go as well. So what I'm going to do is get me a piece of foil and put it over it, and we're going to put it in the refrigerator too with the steak. We'll get some potatoes cut up, and we'll have a good meal with some corn on the cob. Hey guys, I just wanted to come on and show you what the steak and the chicken look like with the marinades. And they are done. It might look a little reddish, but trust me, it's not. It is done. The steak is done. I don't know why it looks that way in the camera, but it does. And the chicken is done as well. As a matter of fact, we checked it with the thermometer, and both of them are done. Everybody likes their steaks cooked, you know, a little different than other people. So that's them, and they're going to be delicious. And here is the potatoes that we cut up that I told you we was putting on the grill. These are mine with black pepper and the butter. The sweet cream butter that I use, the buttermilk, gonna be good. And over here is my husband's. This is his sweet potatoes. Let me get them open. I'm just doing this video a little different. Not using my tripod right now because we're getting ready to eat. But look at them sweet potatoes. Don't they look yummy? They're bright and orange and look so good. And over here is our corn on the cob, and that's going to be delicious as well. If y'all don't mind to go over to Facebook on my cooking page, Old Fashioned Southern Cooking, and like and comment and share and follow my page, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you don't mind, head over to YouTube and like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell for more notifications of this delicious Southern cooking. So anyway, y'all, I appreciate you watching my video. I thank you so much. I'm going to let y'all go, and we're going to sit down for the evening and relax and eat us a good supper.